Perfectly okay.
Right.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. When the session will start, just tell me.
Okay, ma'am. Can you just stop the presentation mode, and first we'll have an introduction. You will be given by Dr. Majumdar. So then we will start the session one after the other.
Should I stop present now?
Is it okay with you, ma'am, to stop the
No, no
presentation?
problem. I can
Yeah,
stop.
you minimize it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can stop. Okay, ma'am. That will be great. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Uh, Dr.
Vishal sir, you
Majumdar.
may start the session.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.
Okay, so I think it's time to start. It's 7:31.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you to our day 11 session of the 2-week faculty development program on effective research and proposal writing strategies. I'd like to welcome our Chief Technology Officer, Engineer Pulak Kumar, former Assistant Scientist at VECC. I welcome our founder, Engineer Aishwarya Dhara, and our event manager, Engineer Ponma Kishan. I um, heartily welcome all the participants who have shown enthusiasm to participate in this 2-week faculty development program with us. The last 1 week of the FDP sessions covered advanced writing techniques, effectively using the how to use the LaTeX in an effective way, and the project proposal writing, and also the use of AI tools has also been covered. So in today's session, it's about day 11 of it is regarding the differentiating abstract, author's contribution, and conclusions. So we are privileged to welcome our today's guest, Dr. Sheuli Chakraborty, as the esteemed speaker of today's session. Dr. Sheuli Chakraborty is the head of the department and assistant professor of the Department of Information Technology at Asansol Engineering College. She achieved the first position gold medal in MTech in 2010 and was awarded the prestigious Inspire Fellowship in 2011. With over 12 years of experience, her expertise spans mobile computing, cloud computing, edge computing, and dew computing. She excelled in the NPTEL online certification on Introduction to Machine Learning, securing a silver medal with 84% in 2019. A dedicated researcher and educator, Dr. Chakraborty is committed to advancing technology and nurturing the next generation of IT professionals. So let's welcome Dr. Sheuli Chakraborty for accepting our invitation once again. I welcome each and every one of you. Let's make today's session one to remember. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Uh, Very good evening to one and all present here. I'm just presenting my screen.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So already Sir has introduced me. Then also from my side once again, myself Dr. Sheuli Chakraborty and assistant professor. Previously I was here in the IT department. Now I am HOD in the Computer Science and Business System Department of Asansol Engineering College, Asansol, West Bengal. And today I got privilege to explain about that research topic. We all are researchers, so we are all going through these steps. And my topic is this is step by step guide for structuring the research paper while differentiating abstract author's contribution and the conclusion. So first of all, before I differentiate, before I explain about these topics, first of all, we need to know about the research paper. What is a research paper? Basically, this is a formal document which presenting the research findings. So it's a written document we used to write in a format following certain according to the publisher where we are going to publish. Following, we used to follow that particular format, but that consists of certain things, certain points. So that points we have to take care, like the results of an in-depth study. The paper on which we are writing the document, we have to do a lot study, lot investigation on that particular topic. Basically, these topics, these are typically used in academic, scientific, or professional settings to communicate research findings. We can have new ideas, we can explain the ideas, or we can compare the previous ideas. Here these research papers, these are basically structured on the basis of some evidence. Here it aims to contribute to the knowledge or understanding of a subject. The structure of a research paper basically is a critical point. Here we search for a success and impact. Well structured research paper must be consisting of that it should have the points like enhances readability, improves comprehension, ensures adherence to academic standards, it enhances the impact of findings, facilitates peer review and evaluation. It guides the writing process. The writing guides the writing process means the future researcher who are writing after taking the reference of it. It increases the chance of publication and citations. So why this structuring is essential? Why it is a mandatory part? As because it enhances the readability and improves the comprehension. That the organized flow. Here we have a clear structure that guides readers through the research, making it easier to understand the complex ideas and research. The logical progression that ensures information is presented logically, starting with the background and ending with conclusion and future directions. It also ensures adherence to academic standards. That journals and the academic institution, they have specific requirements for structuring papers. It follows the guidelines. It makes our paper eligible for the publication. It demonstrates the professionalism and the attention to detail. It enhances the impact of findings. The effective communication that gives us the impact of findings, that effective communication that comes from the structured paper, which highlights the key findings and their significance, ensuring that they are noticed and remembered by the readers. It increases the credibility. A well organized document reflects thoroughness and discipline in our research. So, after that, it also facilitates peer review and evaluation. Reviewers and evaluating these evaluators can easily locate and access that assess specific sections like methods, results, or references. It reduces the likelihood of misunderstandings or misinterpretation of data. It guides us the writing process. A clear structure serves as a blueprint for writing, helping authors systematically address all components of their research. It reduces redundancy and keeps the content focused on the research objectives. It increases the chances of publication and citation. A well structured paper is more likely to meet journal standards and attract a wider audience. Clarity and coherence improves the chances of being cited by other researchers. What are the key components that a research paper should possess? The key components that a research paper should possess that highlights are, yeah, the first point that comes that title and keyword. Next, we are having all of our the researchers who are already are in this domain. The people are must be familiar with those terms. So these comes through the, and it varies. Sometimes it also varies. As I have sequenced the title keyword, after that abstract introduction, literature review, my contribution, methodology used, result, discussion, conclusion, references. In some cases, my contribution comes to the end part of it, but here I have added my contribution just after the literature review that I'll explain later. So, first point is the title. The title is the most important subject of this our research paper. It's a it has to be a concise and informative summary of the research paper. What are the characteristics of a good title? A good title should be clear and specific. Clear and specific in the sense of so that it can communicate. It can communicate with the main topic or focus the main topic of the paper. Just like I put one example, that is sustainable task offloading decision. So wherever this paper describes one of the task offloading decision, and the method used is genetic algorithm. And the domain is here sensor mobile edge computing. The characteristic also include it has to be concise. Concise means it avoids unnecessary words or jargon, typically 10 to 15 words. It has to be informative. That is, it highlights the research question, methodology, or results wherever it is applicable. It has to be engaging that sparks curiosity while remaining professional and factual. Sometimes within the research title, we can use certain abbreviation as the name, not the part of any word or sentences, as there can be short name of the paper that can reflect the work or the domain that are getting used in the or getting represented through that particular paper. What are the tips for strong title? That strong title includes key variables or components of the study. It avoid abbreviation and overly technical language. It reflects the study's contribution to the field. Along with title, just after that, we have the keyword. Keywords are specific terms or phrases that represent the core concept of the research. They're crucial for indexing and improving the discoverability of the paper. What are the characteristics of effective keyword? These are it has to be relevant, that is directly related to the main topic of the study. It has to be specific, which use precise terms rather than broad categories. It has to be concise, that is typically 3 to 8 keywords are recommended. Title and keywords. How we choose the keyword? While we are choosing, we have to identify the main focus area of our paper. That is about the research question, about the research methodology, about the research outcomes. We use terms frequently used in our field to ensure relevance. It includes synonyms or related terms to broaden discoverability. Just like if we are having the artificial intelligence or machine learning, so in this case the keywords may include AI, there may be machine learning, there may be deep learning. The placement of the keywords, that keywords are usually just listed below the abstract, as we people already know that. After the title and keyword, the next important topic is abstract. Abstract is one of the most important part of our research paper. It reflects a concise summary of our paper. It is designated to give readers a quick overview of the study's purpose, the methodology, the key findings, and the significance. It is one of the most critical section as because it helps readers decide whether to read the full paper or not. So people do what? People first read abstract. After reading abstract, if someone gets interest, then and only they used to study the next part of the paper. So it is the critical section. If it is getting crossed, the throughout the paper, that is the full paper, will be read out by the reader. So it reflects that key part. After the abstract that we have, what are the different type of abstract? There are that it can be descriptive abstract that describes the research, that can focus the purpose or the scope of the study. It can provide no detailed result or conclusion. It can have example like abstracts in humanities or theoretical papers. It can be informative abstract, which include purpose, methods, results, and conclusions. It provides all essential details for a comprehensive understanding. It is common in scientific and technical papers. Structure of an abstract typically consisting of the following elements. There should be little bit introduction, like theoretical background, little bit very with very lesser number of sentences, like one or two sentences. It actually depicts the purpose or significance of the study. There can be research objective, that is one sentence define the specific aim of the study. There can be methods. Method for we can have 2 to 3 sentences which briefly describe the methodology or the approach. The result part highlighting the key findings. Sometimes the result part can include little bit comparison also, so that how much better it is performing, that can be highlighted using this result part. There can be a very small but like 1 or 2 sentences that will give us the conclusion and the implications, which summarize the broader significance of the findings. To write the good abstract, we have to make it concise. That is, preferably between 150 to 250 words. It has to be clear and specific, that will avoid vague statements and jargon. It can write last, that is, draft the abstract after completing the paper. Sometimes in the beginning part, some part are written, and after completing the paper, if we implement the whole idea in the abstract, it comes an excellent as. We can use active voice, that is, mostly it is passive voice are asked to get avoid. So we can use comparisons, that is, we are trying to add 1 or 2 comparison that I have already told. We avoid citation in the abstract part. After the abstract part, we are having the introduction part. This introduction part is another most important section of our research paper. It sets the stage for the study by providing context. It establishes the research problem and it outlines the objectives of the study. Basically, a strong introduction captivates the research interest and explain why the research is necessary. What is the purpose of the introduction? It provides the background information and context for the research, why we are studying that particular problem. It clearly defines the problem or research question that is being addressed. It explains the significance of the study and the contribution of it to the field. Its structure includes that structure of the introduction that includes theoretical background. It begins with a broad overview of the topic. It explains why the topic is important and relevant in this context. It includes the literature review, that is current knowledge, that briefly summarize existing research related to the topic. There, in the literature review part, we can highlight the gaps or unresolved issues in the literature. It provides the problem statement that clearly define the research problem or question. That is, it explains what gap or challenge our study aims to address. It provides the research objectives and scope. It states the specific objectives of the study. Importance of the study. This explains why our research is significant and how it contributes to the field. The brief overview of the paper structure that can be added in the introduction part. Writing a strong introduction means we have to engage the reader. Reader should get interest after reading the abstract in the beginning part. After going through the beginning part of the introduction, there should be certain interesting fact or statistic or question which can make the reader engage. We have to make it concise. We have to, of course, we have to avoid to provide the lengthy background detail. We have to save them for the discussion or the literature review. We have to be clear and specific that can clearly define the research problem and objectives. We need to write after completing the paper. So, writing the introduction after finishing the paper ensures it reflects the actual content. In every case, in every time, it is asked to avoid the jargon. We can use simple English, simple words that make the paper more easier to understand. This introduction in a research paper, certain mistakes that are asked to avoid while writing introduction. The vagueness. We need to avoid general statements that don't add value. Lack of focus. Ensure every time we need to ensure that the introduction directly related to the topic of the study, not to explain the background, not to explain these side by side different topics. All the time, we need to keep our focus to the actual topic of the study. Overloading with literature summarizes only the most relevant studies. Skipping the problem statement clearly articulate the research problem. After that introduction part, we have the literature review. It's a critical section of the research paper which surveys and synthesizes existing studies related to the research topic. It provides a foundation for our study by highlighting the gaps, by supporting our research question, and showing how our work contributes to the broader field. The structure of a literature review should be logically organized. It is logically organized to guide the reader through the existing research landscape. The structure includes introduction, thematic or chronological organization. Thematic approach means group studies by themes, by trends, or the methodologies. Chronological means in the order as they were published to show the evaluation of the research. The critical analysis of studies. It summarizes the key findings from each study that highlights strengths, limitations, and relevance to our research. It identifies the research gaps that point out unresolved issues or questions that our study addresses. Next comes the conclusion. That conclusion summarizes the major themes or gaps from the review, leads into our research question or hypothesis. Sometimes, after the literature review, where we are finding the gaps, that is identifying the research gap, that is the unresolved issues or questions that our study addresses. In that particular place, we can add how we are trying to solve that particular problem. That is author's contribution or my contribution in the context of what new ideas are getting proposed in that particular research paper. While we are trying to write a strong literature review, we have to be selective. We need to focus on the most relevant and credible studies. We need to synthesize, not summarize. We have to show connection between studies instead of merely listing them. We use recent sources. We need to prioritize research published in the last 5 to 10 years, unless citing foundational studies. Critically evaluate studies that discuss methodologies, findings, and limitations. It organized logically that use headings and subheadings to structure our review. Follows that common mistakes that we want to avoid while writing literature review, that is lack of focus. We are avoiding, we try to avoid including unrelated studies, overloading with details. We need to summarize studies by briefly focusing on the relevant topic. No critical analysis. We are not here to just describe the studies. We are here to evaluate their significance. Missing connection to the study, that is, relate each piece of literature to your research. Identifying research gap. Identifying research gap is a critical step in context to developing a meaningful and a impactful research study. A research gap is a missing piece of knowledge or an unexplored area in a field of study that needs further investigation. That pinpointing a gap helps to justify your study and demonstrate the relevance of this particular research study. The steps to identify a research gap. We have to conduct a comprehensive literature review. We have to search for the pattern. We need to search for pattern means we need to look for recurring themes, recurring methodologies or findings in the literature. Identify the limitations. That means we need to pay attention to the limitations acknowledged in previous studies. We need to check the contradictory findings. We need to note areas where research findings conflict. We need to spot the underrepresented population or regions. We need to investigate whether certain demographic locations or context have been overlooked. Next step, we need to explore emerging trends. That means we need to examine recent advancements in this field. We have to consider new methodologies, technologies, or data sources that could provide fresh insights. We need to examine methodological gaps. That means it identifies studies that use outdated or limited methodologies. We have to consider practical and theoretical gaps. Practical gap means we need to investigate issues where findings have not been applied to real world problem. Theoretical gap explores concept or theories that haven't been fully tested or explained. We should have review research recommendation. Most studies include recommendation for future research. We need to use these as a starting point for identifying the gaps. We have to analyze systematic reviews or meta analysis, that is, review paper summarizing a large body of work that can highlight gaps across multiple studies. Steps after identifying a gap: first, we identified the gap. After that, we can clearly articulate the gap in our research paper. We can frame our research question to address the gap. We can highlight its importance in our introduction and literature review. The author's contribution section in a research paper outlines the specific roles and responsibilities. So, after we are finding the gap, we have highlighted its importance in the introduction and literature review. We are outlining our role. We are explaining or we are proposing the new ideas, that is the author's contribution. Of course, when there are multiple authors, then we have to specify the roles of the different author. But the actual, after the introduction, after the literature review, where we found the gap, we can add a column like my contribution, that is the author's contribution, which outline the roles and responsibilities of authors in conducting the research and writing the paper. It provides transparency and credit for individual efforts that ensures the accountability. It clearly specifies what new idea is getting proposed. The purpose of this author's contribution section to clearly define what each author contributed to the study, to ensure transparency in collaborative research, to comply with journal or publisher requirements. Just a minute. Yeah. Next, we come to methodology. That methodology section of a research paper describes the processes, the techniques, and strategies that is used to collect, analyze, and interpret the data. This section provides readers with the information that they need to evaluate the reliability, the validity, and replicability of our study. The purpose of the methodology section, excuse me, to explain how the research was conducted, to justify the choice of methods and approaches, to ensure that the study can be replicated by other researchers, to demonstrate the rigor and credibility of the research. While writing the methodology, the steps include: we need to describe our research approach. That means it will explain whether our study is explanatory or descriptive, explanatory or experimental. We need to justify our methods, that is, provide reasons for choosing specific method. We need to provide detailed description that include enough detail for other researchers to replicate our study. While we are why we are using a method, like if we are using a particular method like deep learning or genetic algorithm or anything, so we have to detail that method so that other researchers may replicate. While replicating, they can follow the steps. Address validity and reliability. How we can ensure the validity and reliability of the method that is getting used by the particular research paper. We need to organize logically. That means we use headings and subheadings to structure this section for clarity. Suggested structure, like it can include research design, participant data collection, data analysis, ethical consideration, methodology used, the main part. So in this way, we can use those part. After methodology, we get the result and analysis section. This result and analysis section includes that presents the findings of our research and interprets their significance. This section often combines data presentation with a discussion of the finding in the context of the research question or hypothesis. While we are discussing result and analysis, first we will discuss about result. Following to that, we have the analysis part. The result part basically focuses on what the data shows without interpretation. The data presentation can be done using tables. There can be tables of data, tables, graphs, and charts. We can use graphs, we can use charts to summarize the data. Sorry. Descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics means it report means medians, percentages, and other summary metrics. There can be key findings that highlight significant trends or outcomes. We should avoid interpretation. Avoid interpretation means we need to refrain from explaining why the result occurred. Reserve that part for the discussion section. We have to just show the result first. After exhibiting the result, after displaying the result, we will do it afterwards. So we have to refrain from explaining why this result is occurred. Next, we come to the analysis part. The analysis part interpret the data and relate it to the research objective or hypothesis. It explains pattern or trends. It compares with literature. It addresses hypothesis. It explores implications. That means the data that is being used in this paper and that got generated as the output data, it has to meet the research objective. Whatever hypothesis, whatever objective was explained in the beginning part, that objective are meeting or not, that comes in the analysis part. So we have to address the hypothesis. We have to explore the implications, the need of it. We have to explain patterns or trends. And of course we will compare it with the literature part. Following to that, there are tips for writing the analysis section. During writing the analysis section, we should try to interpret, not to repeat. That means we avoid restating data already presented in the result. Means whatever data we have written, we have shown in the data part. Once again, in the analysis section, it is not required to repeat. What we need only to interpret, only to explain, not needed to restate the data. We need to relate findings to objectives. We have to show how our findings address the research questions, whatever the findings that we have done, whatever the output data that we have done, is it meeting the purpose, whatever in the objective part we have shown, what was my contribution, what I wanted to do, what was the new proposed idea, and what result we were expecting. Is it meeting that? So it tries to find out, it tries to address the research questions. We need to discuss unexpected results. Unexpected result discussion means we have to explain or hypothesize reasons for anomalies. We have to avoid overgeneralizations. Overgeneralization means limit interpretations to the scope of our study. So we have to be specific to the point so that topic is not getting misunderstood or overgeneralized by others. And of course, we have to, if there is any unexpected result that we are getting, of course, we need to discuss. We need to address those unexpected result or any kind of anomalies that we need to address in the analysis section. We should use evidence based analysis that support interpretations with data or references to previous studies. That means there must be certain evidence based analysis. Without any data, without any program, without any output, if we only explain through sentences, it doesn't qualify that much. But when we are putting certain kind of evidence, this unexpected result discussion is also a evidence. The data, that output that our research proposal can generate, it creates the evidence-based analysis when we are analyzing that particular part. So evidence-based analysis support interpretation with data or references to previous studies. Following to the result and analysis section, we have seen the result, we have analyzed the result. Next we come to the discussion part. The discussion section interprets the finding of our research, which explains their significance and places them in the context of existing knowledge. It addresses how the results contribute to the field, their implications, and any limitations if there are. So, following this, just a minute. Yeah. So, what are the purposes of this discussion section? This discussion section is used to explain the significance of the results in relation to the research question or hypothesis. So, the research question or the plan or the projection, the hypothesis that we're trying to get achieved. Here in the discussion section, we are here to explain the significance of the result in relation to these questions. The result that we have analyzed, are they significant to the corresponding hypothesis? That is one of the most important part of this discussion. To compare the findings with previous studies and theories. The previous studies that met certain output, that met certain projection, their proposals. So the new paper, the paper that is getting written, it is also finding certain data, certain output, come up with certain analysis. Here in the discussion part, we are here to analyze, we are here to discuss or compare those findings with the previous studies and the theories. Here, we are here to highlight the implications of the result, to acknowledge the limitations and propose the future research direction. We are, of course, in every context, there are certain limitations. So, when we are writing a research paper, we have to highlight our limitation also. We have to acknowledge the limitations. And the limitation generates the tools. Limitation gives us the writings for the future research direction. It directs us, it helps us, it guides us towards the future research proposals. So we must highlight the limitation and thereby propose the future research direction. When we are writing the discussion part, we have to maintain the structure of the discussion section. The structure of the discussion section includes here we restate the key findings. Means, although we have mentioned the key findings of the paper, but in the discussion section, we need to summarize the most important result. And we have to avoid repeating the result section verbatim. We are not here to completely repeat the result part. We are not here to completely repeat the result part, but we are here to summarize. We are here to summarize the most important result. We have to interpret the result. Interpretation of the result means we need to explain what the results mean and how they answer the research questions. We need to discuss unexpected findings. When there are, already we have discussed that if there is any unexpected result, if there is any anomalies, we need to highlight that, we need to acknowledge that, and of course the reason behind it. In the discussion forum, we have to interpret, we have to discuss the purpose why that unexpected findings is getting occurred. We need to explain what the results mean and how they answer the research questions. We have to compare the findings with literature. We need to relate our findings to previous studies or theories. We need to highlight similarities and differences, comparing the findings with literature. In the literature review, we have discussed about others' work. We have found the gap, what the research anomalies, what are the limitations, what are the gaps, which gaps we are trying to address in our proposed research paper. So we found out the gap just after the literature review. So when we have done our result analysis in the discussion part, we have to relate our finding to previous studies or previous theories. That means it will highlight or it will acknowledge whether we are meeting that gap or not. We were trying to meet certain gap. We were trying to address certain gap. So when we compare this, we can come up with the conclusion that whether we are meeting that gap. So that discussion we must add in the research paper in the discussion part. We have to highlight the similarities and differences. Of course, when we are proposing a research paper, we have done the theoretical literature review, we have done the related study. There can be a bit of similarities, there can be certain percentage of differences. So, whatever similarities are there, we have to be true to the fact. We have to explain these are the similarities that are present. These are the differences that are present. So it increases the acceptability of the paper. When we are being very honest, we are establishing, when we are displaying all these key facts that we found out during our research work. The discuss implications, of course, it explain how the findings contribute to the field or solve practical problems, how it is contributing to this domain, how this field is used to solve certain practical problems. This is the need for this discussion. We have to address the limitations. We have to be transparent about the study's weaknesses. Transparent. So that is the limitations that we have. That limitations we discussed in the context of the result that is unexpected. Certain kind of result where we are expecting a little bit better. If we didn't get any better result, that discussion we did there. But here limitation, what we cannot do, we have to highlight that also. We have to address that limitation. That limitation, that weakness of this study, if we are being transparent, it helps us to propose the future research. So that limitation help us to address, to propose the follow-up study, to suggest the future research, to address the unanswered questions or limitations. So this discussion part is another important part. Basically, these parts are the mandatory part of a particular research paper. Common mistakes that we should avoid during the discussion part, that comes that over generalizing. So we need to avoid making claims beyond what that data supports. So whatever the data is supporting, we should be in that region. Overgeneralizing or making claims what we cannot do, what the research cannot find. So that is basically is getting requested to avoid. Ignoring the limitations. Ignoring the limitations means we need to acknowledge, we should acknowledge our weakness that we have already discussed. We should not ignore our limitation. If we are being limited, if we are being ignoring, that means we are avoiding the transparency. We are avoiding, we are not explaining, we are not displaying our weakness. So it lacks the transparency. It lacks the transparency what we should not follow. Failing to connect to literature, so that should also be avoided. Always we need to relate the findings to previous research. Whatever the findings that we are doing, we should connect it with the previous research. But if we are not doing this, then the discussion part is not complete. The discussion part will not yield a better, catchy, or attractive discussion part. So we should avoid that failing to connect with the literature. Overloading with data. We should not repeat all results. Focus on interpretation. That means once we have shown in the data part, we have given the data, that table, that graph, everything. Once again we are giving those data part during the analysis section, during the discussion section. It is not expected actually. So we should not repeat, all result. So data part will come in the data section. Analysis will be done in the analysis part. And the discussion comes in the discussion section without repeating the data. without repeating the data. Next comes the neglecting the practical implications. That means we are here to highlight how the findings can be applied in real world context. Now, if we are neglecting the practical implications, that is instructed to avoid, that is instructed to avoid, to neglect that practical implications. Next, we come to conclusion. The conclusion section is the final part of our research paper. That is, we first started with abstract keyword. In the abstract, we have highlighted our research topic. Once again, we are in the conclusion section. It is also the final part of the research paper. Here also, see, there also we summarized our research study. Here also we are summarizing our study, main finding, their implications, the possible directions for future research. Here we are here writing the conclusion by keeping in mind that it should be concise and impactful, leaving the reader with a clear understanding of our study's contribution. So, what we are doing here, here also we are summarizing the study's main finding. But in the abstract section, we were proposing the idea with that the research paper that tries to address that problem, it tries to solve that particular issue. It can give us the result better than this. But in the conclusion section, we are summarizing after the findings is been done, their requirement and the possible direction for the future research. What future task we can add, that comes under the conclusion. It gives us the direction that what future research can be done. Often conclusions can also be written as conclusion and future scope. It should be concise and impactful. Impactful means it is leaving the reader with a clear understanding of our study's contribution. So a conclusion is impactful means the readers get clear understanding whatever the contribution the researchers has proposed in that particular research paper. Following to that, we are having structure of the conclusion section. In the structure of the conclusion section, we have the points. The first point is restating the research problem and objectives. That means it reminds the reader about the study's purpose and what it aimed to achieve. It summarizes the key findings. That means this there we have to add in the conclusion section once again that what was its purpose and what it was trying to aim to achieve. Has it achieved that thing? What are the key findings? We need to summarize. That means concisely we need to present the most important result or the outcomes. We need to highlight the contributions and significance, which explain how our study contributes to the field or addresses a problem. That can be a highlighted contribution, not in very detail. It should be concise, of course. It discusses the practical implications. That is, it offers the actionable insights or recommendations that is based on the findings. So whatever findings has been found, it discuss the practical implications of it. That is actionable insight or recommendations. It address the limitations. It can be optional also. We can add the limitation, we may not also. It briefly mention any constraint and their impact on the findings. It suggests future research, providing directions for future studies to build upon our work. It gives us the direction for the future studies. That means what future work we are going to propose after this conclusion part. So, as I have already mentioned, that conclusion can be modified or can be rewritten as conclusion and future scope to build upon our work. And the closing statement should be end with a strong, impactful thought that underscores the importance of the study. And of course, it should be relevant. So, what are the tips for writing the conclusion? Of course, it has to be concise. We need to avoid the lengthy explanations. We have to keep our focus to the point. We should avoid the new information. Whatever we are discussing from the beginning, we have to be within that boundary. We should not introduce a new finding, new concept, new technology. We should try to avoid this because we are concluding a statement. We are concluding a study. So nothing new should be proposed in that particular area. We should use strong and positive language. Our conclusion must convey confidence in our study's contribution. So whatever our contributions are there, it should convey that confidence. So we should try to write the positive languages there. We need to connect to the big picture, that is, relate our findings to broader societal or the theoretical contexts. We should balance objectivity and optimism. We should acknowledge the limitation, but emphasize the value of our research. It's not that we are only writing our limitation in the conclusion part. So we have to balance. When we are acknowledging the limitation, we have to emphasize the value of the particular research that is getting proposed in this particular study. References and appendices. The references and appendices sections are crucial for supporting our research. It's a mandatory part. It provides additional context, and together they ensure transparency, credibility, and accessibility for readers who want to verify or explore our work further. It ensures the transparency, credibility, and accessibility for readers who want to verify or explore our work further. Next, we come to the purpose of reference or the purpose of appendices. The purpose of references include, what are the purposes of these references? To acknowledge the resource used in our study, to enable readers to locate and verify the information cited. To acknowledge the sources means whatever the research paper that we have used in our literature survey, all research paper we need to add as the reference. We need to cite those research papers. We should acknowledge the sources that are used in that particular study. To enable readers to locate and verify the information cited. We should enable the reader that they can locate and verify whatever we have discussed in the literature review part. Those papers where from they are being taken, they should count from the information cited in that particular research paper. establish the credibility of our research. To establish the credibility of our research, that means whatever the credit that this research paper proposes, that we should establish by adding the particular, by the mandatory, those important references. Always it is suggested to use the recent references. Of course, those recent references will come in the literature survey too. The purpose of appendices: to provide supplementary information that supports the study but is not critical to the main text, that is the appendices. And if we want to include the raw data, the detailed calculation, the questionnaires, additional figure, additional table, that we can add through these appendices. The key features include the citation style. So in the Google Scholar only we can see there are different citation style. So APA, MLA, Chicago, IEEE, there are different kind of citation style as it is been described, as it is been asked by the particular publisher. According to that, we can follow that. There can be alphabetical order. We can arrange references alphabetically by the author's last name. We can complete the information by including all necessary detail, that is author's title, publication year, volume, issues, pages, publisher, DOI, etc. So all the information must be included in the citation part. So what to include? We can include raw data, full data set if permitted, of course. We can include additional figures or tables that can add the visual aids that were too detailed for the main body. We can add the instruments, copies of surveys, interview protocols, or experimental tool. We can add the technical detail, detailed description of methods, equations, or software code. We can add the supplementary materials, that is charts, maps, or transcripts. We can include, we should follow a particular format that label appendices clearly. We can have that example as it can be appendix A, appendix B. We can use the descriptive titles for each appendix. We can use refer to appendices in the main text also. References and appendices. In that particular part, what are the commonly mistakes that we used to do and what should be avoided? Inconsistent citation style. We should use a uniform format for all references. So there should not be certain citation we are following to a particular style and another citation in a different style. That should not be followed. Incomplete references. Always it is avoided. It is asked to avoid the incomplete references. Ensures every source has all required details. Overloading appendices. It only include relevant supplementary materials. Lack of cross referencing. Clearly reference appendices in the main text for seamless navigation. So these are asked to avoid while writing a good research paper. Now we come to the differences. We have written abstract, we have written conclusion. Abstract is also a concise summary. Conclusion is also a concise summary. The abstract concise, it's a concise summary of the entire paper, including the background, objective, methodology, key finding, and implications. So we are summarizing the entire paper where we are having the background little bit, objective, which methodology we are using, what are the key findings that we want to do, that we are doing in this particular paper, and what are the implications. Whereas in case of conclusion, sorry, it summarizes the main findings, emphasizing their implications and relevance. What findings we have done, emphasizing their implication and the relevance, how much relevant it is, how it can be concluded. So there they are having this difference. Abstract is basically designed to provide readers with a quick overview of the study and entice them to read the full paper. We just try to give a prototype of the paper. We are just trying to give a signature part of the paper so that the researchers find some attraction and they become enthusiastic to read the full paper. Whereas this conclusion part, it focuses on interpreting the results, addressing the research questions, whatever the research questions, whatever the objective we asked before, we mentioned before, is this research finding addressing those questions? How the result is getting interpreted, whether it is meeting those objectives and providing a final statement on this study's contribution, that this study contributes while meeting those objective, addressing those research gap, it provides us that output, that final statement. So these were the differences between abstract and conclusion. Here we are having the difference between, or the comparison better, comparison between abstract, author's contribution, and conclusion. As we have already discussed, that the abstract is a concise summary of the entire research paper, providing researchers or readers with a quick overview of the key points, objectives, methods, results, conclusions of the study. Even it provides the reader with a quick overview of the conclusion also. Whereas the conclusion summarizes, the key findings of the research, reiterates the significance of the results and suggest areas for future research or implication for practice. Those part we have already discussed. Now comes the author's contribution. The objective that we have declared, the objective that we have discussed, where just after the literature review, after finding the gap, we comes up with my contribution. What is the objective of this paper? What is going to be my contribution to meet that objective? This section explains the specific contribution of the author which is involved in this particular research project. Here are the three key differences, three key points. While we are writing abstract, we are trying to summarize each part of our paper, keeping in mind, keeping in the context of that the readers should get attraction to read the complete paper or the full paper. Author's contribution include whatever the new concept is being proposed, my contribution is being proposed in that particular paper. And what are the roles of authors? Of course, that also comes under the author's contribution. And the conclusion summarizes the key findings of the research. It reiterates the significance of the result and suggests areas for future research or implications for practice. Here are a brief summarization of this comparison that already been discussed, that what is the purpose of this abstract, what is the purpose of the author's contribution, what is the purpose of the conclusion. As we know that abstract briefly summarizes the overview of the entire paper, it author's contribution clarify the roles of the authors and research and the proposed new idea proposed by the authors. The conclusion part summarizes finding and the suggest implications. The content part includes that research, that content, in context of the content, the abstract proposed research objectives, methods, results, and the conclusions, whereas author's contribution details each author's role. Conclusion, key findings, significance, future direction. Length, the abstract, precise, short, that is preferably 150 to 300. In certain case, if 300 is large one, it can be 250 up to. And in author's contribution, it varies, typically brief. Conclusion, short to medium, it also varies. The abstract comes beginning of the paper. Author's contribution can be after gap finding. Of course, this place varies depending on the situations. And the conclusion part mostly comes at the end of the paper. So when we are writing, for the effective writing, we should use certain tools for improving our research paper quality. These tips are grammar checkers. The We should use the grammar checkers, and one is citation tool. We can use we are having the Grammarly software. There are many softwares. We are having, there are tools for the citation. We can use mainly also. So there are certain citation tools also. If you have any question or query, you can have my contact detail for queries. And here is my college address and my mail ID, and the contact number is given. And thank you all for listening me, for giving me that ample of time, for bothering me. Thank you so
No,
much.
ma'am, it was really an wonderful session and really a very good, insightful thoughts and that you have delivered today, ma'am. Thank you so much. I request Dr. Arunava sir to handle this Q&A session, sir.
Okay, so thank you, ma'am, for the
Thank you.
wonderful lecture.
Yes.
So we have some questions from the audience. Each,
Yeah, of course.
yes, I like to ask. So first question is, what things should be kept in mind while writing a research paper?
We are trying, there are, I have already mentioned this part. It's a very nice question. We have to keep in mind that for what purpose we are writing the paper. We have to clarify the question first. For what purpose? It can be a comparison based, it can be a literature review paper, that is different case. If this is a descriptive paper, if we are trying to propose something new idea, then we should be precise that what new idea we are going to propose in that particular paper. We have to highlight that thing. And is it relevant? We have to follow from which literature we found out the gap. So whenever we are writing a research paper, first we have to be definite about the problem, whether there exists any kind of problem. If the problem is already there, how can I be confident about that problem? I have to go through. Suppose I am working with the due computing work. What is due computing? That we need to know first. If we are implementing due computing, so first of all, we need to be precise in which context we are using that due computing. What is the problem? And then, if we find out the problem, that the problem has not been addressed till, or some people have addressed, I am not getting satisfied with that. In that case, we have to do a literature survey, precise literature survey about the problem, definite problem I am thinking about. After researching, after discussing, or after going through detailed study about the problem through the literature already been written, I need to try to find out the gap. If there is any gap, how I can mitigate that? How I can address that gap? After that, so first what we think, first we thought about the problem. First thing should come in our mind, what is the problem I want to address? Has other people already addressed? Yes, other people have already. How they have addressed? Is it meeting the gap that I am thinking? No, there are certain gap. How I can solve that? Then we have to think how we can solve that gap. If we can find out, yes, using that technology or using that new proposal or new idea, I can solve that gap. That is going to be my objective, my contribution. And after that, what methodology I am using to mitigate that gap? I may use genetic algorithm. I may use machine learning algorithm. I may use deep learning algorithm. In my context, I'm telling this thing. So whatever algorithm, someone may finds that genetic algorithm is good. Some may find no, genetic algorithm is now we can have NSGA2 that I can use. Some can see, yeah, I'll use machine learning algorithm. It depends. There are literatures that are using those algorithms. So we have to be confident which algorithm can give us a better result. We can do a comparison also there by using several algorithms, so that the previous proposals that have been already proposed and they have come up with certain result, and I am trying to produce better result to address that particular gap. So there, after my objective, I comes up with my methodology. What methodology I am using? So first, I have not talked about till now the abstract. I am talking about the introduction part. I'm talking about the literature review. What introduction part? What the problem is? What are the theoretical background? Literature review. What the other people have already done? Where is the gap finding? How I can mitigate that gap? How I can meet that gap? My contribution, my objective. There comes the methodology, which algorithm I am using. After using the methodology, I will come up with certain data. I have used certain data through my project, through my experiment. I have used certain data. I have got the resultant data, and there I will reflect, I will depict all the data in my paper. Following to that, I'll do the analysis. Whatever the data I have mentioned in my paper, I have to analyze those data part. After analyzing, there, of course, the positive part we will say, of course, the negative part, if we have certain limitation, I must mention that limitation also, because it will give me the future path that I can do research a lot more related to that topic. So there we will do the analysis, we will write down the discussion, we will do the conclusion. Conclusion means the findings that we were trying. Has it addressed those findings? Is it giving a strong outcome where we are happy with? Of course, if there are limitations, how I can meet that by proposing some future work. Now, summarizing this whole, I can write down my abstract. This is the brief CV of my detailed CV, that abstract. It will brief that what was the theoretical background, why we are studying that problem, what problem I am trying to address, using which methodology I am addressing. I got a good result. Through analysis, I have seen the result. I have discussed this result. that it is improving the previous researchers, and after that it is concluding with a strong statement, and followed by abstract should be followed by keyword, that is those keyword through which if researcher searches our paper, so correctly our paper is getting highlighted, our paper is getting read by the people who are working on that particular domain. So the steps, so the main steps are without considering anything, we have to summarize in our abstract. Without considering anything, we have to write it first. In that
Hello.
by literature review, followed by finding the gap, after that objective of the paper, after that the my contribution, following to that methodology is getting used, the algorithm that is getting used, the data that it has given, the output, the result part, that is the data. After that we have the analysis, how we are analyzing that data, then it follows by the discussion, then follows by the conclusion part, and of course the everything we have to summarize in our abstract, that we need to summarize in our abstract. Am I clear, sir?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
ma'am.
So our next question is any book to learn writing research paper?
Actually it is not required nowadays. Nowadays if we are following 3 to 5 research paper in my domain, is we can get, we can get an enough idea how we can write one research paper. Nowadays it is not required to follow. Actually the step by step writing will come from a researcher's mind automatically, if he or she is giving a deep dive to the problem. That is the most important part. Deep dive to the main problem. The concept, the writing will automatically appear. According to
Okay.
me, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So next question is how to find key points in paper.
First of all, if we are doing, I'm taking one example of literature review. Suppose we are doing one literature review. So, suppose I am working on a domain that is, let us suppose that I am working on task offloading. Let us, I'm taking, it's a very easy topic. So that's why I'm taking that example. Task offloading is related to somehow cloud computing. That means whenever, nowadays we people know no, that when we are working with a mobile, in that context, and when our mobile, we used to download our operating system, and whenever operating system needs to get updated, we don't need to provide the raw file to our phone. Only we need to connect to the internet. Our corresponding site updates its operating system because the data has been kept in the cloud. So if the high loaded task that is coming to the mobile phones cannot do the high loaded task, if certain situation arises, then that load can be uploaded to the cloud. I just briefed a little bit. So suppose I'm working on that task uploading topic. If I'm doing on that task offloading topic, what I need to do, I need to simply go to the Google Scholar site. I simply search in the Google Scholar site. There I need to write task offloading. If I am very new to the research domain, I will first go through the earlier paper, not for a long period of time, just only for one or two simple paper, which is very easy for me to understand, only one or two. After only reading through one or two paper, I'll skip the most years. I'll come to the recent years. Suppose I am in the 2024, so I will read the research papers that is from 2022 to 24 on that particular domain. If I am reading to those topics, I'll get my idea that what are the key points that I need to ready. Suppose we have downloaded one simple research paper, that is current research paper. What we will do? We will simply check what the key points are getting addressed in those research paper, and what I am thinking about the problem, how my points of problem can address those points. Is there any gap? I have to find out the gap. I have to think there. There is my new idea. There is the my proposed idea. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Yes.
Next question is summarize section and subsection and subsection up to what extent we can go.
That depends upon the problem, definite problem. What are the technologies are getting used, and how we are summarizing the paper, how algorithms we have used, in how many algorithm we have shown the comparison. So subsection, basically it is not much more. We shouldn't make our research paper clumsy. We have to make it simpler. Always, every time, whenever we are writing a research paper, we have to we have to think about that the readers that are reading, of course, to get published, we know that it will go through certain peer review process. Someone will review my paper, but reviewers also expect that the paper should be simple one that can give the future direction to the new researchers. Those papers will be cited more, so publishers also prefer those papers. So we need to try to make our paper simpler.
Okay. Next question is what is abbreviation studies? I think abbreviation studies.
Sorry, I'm not getting his or her point. Uh,
Yeah, I think it is trying to say ablation study, which is a term in artificial intelligence. Maybe it is
ablation,
saying, yeah, I think
abli.
so. But the spelling it is written like what is ablation studies? ABILI. I also don't know what is ablation. Ablation I know, ablation study I have heard.
That is that the technology that is used to evaluate the performance, like
Yeah, 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 exactly.
ablating. That is the analyzing the impact. No, it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
uh that
it
is
is a
related
different
to
thing.
a particular topic, I think. It's not that the writing, it's not comes under the context of how to write a research paper. What are the different
Yeah.
topics? It's a particular field. Of course the experts will tell about that particular field.
Okay. Next one is the future scope will be included as one of the paragraphs in the conclusion part.
It can be kept as the subpart, conclusion on future scope, and thereby we can use another paragraph to add that future scope, or we can write separately also. Conclusion is a part and the future scope is also another part. We can add it separately, or we can make two together by just only changing the paragraph.
Okay. Next one, how many ways literature can be done, but practically in MS Office?
We can give the first we can write it using the paragraph, like the structure that when we are explaining the theoretical background, that is the definite problem. First we can define the problem, and thereby one by one we can mention the literature review, and of course we can use the tabular data also. We can make one table, and in that particular table we can add those recent references and what are the key points those literature, those particular papers are trying to meet, trying to address, and what extra point, which those papers are not addressing, one extra column will be there, which will be put cross against all those papers. And my contribution, when I'll take the name of the my paper in the last row, and we will tick that particular column, that in extra it is addressing that particular field. So in the tabular data also we can give it through theoretical paragraph writing, we can give it through tabular graph, we can use a certain kind of graph chart also, what percentage of result every individual literature are exhibiting, and what extra percentage, what better percentage in context of the problem is my idea is proposing, that also I can use. So it depends upon the user, it depends upon the researcher, how they are depicting, how they are proposing or projecting.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. While writing a research paper, how many previous papers we should refer?
It it depends always, it depends person to person, it depends problem to problem. Then also if we come to certain average point, the thing is not that how many research paper we must mention, because certain times we do review of the literature paper, in certain cases we see that 15 papers we are just literatures are got mentioned. Certain times certain publishers used to say 25 minimum papers we should mention, in certain case it can be 30. So it should not be less than 15, how far I think, and it should not be more than 25 or 30. In between there should be, it depends upon the problem to problem. And if in the literature, in the case of references, if we are adding 25 or 30 literature, and if we are using a tabular data, it is not mandatory that all 25 or all 30 paper need to be represented or depicted on that particular table, because definite to the problem maybe 10 or 15 paper, definite to the particular algorithm getting used, tools getting used, there also there might be certain paper which we will not do comparison, which we will not do comparison or compare. So table may include only those papers which are depicting to that particular problem only. Is it okay?
Okay. Yeah. So, next one, how to select appropriate methodology for the research paper in HRM.
In, sorry,
HRM,
in
I think human resource it is saying.
HRM, human
H-
resource management.
Maybe yes, just HRM it is written. I think it is how to select appropriate methodology for research paper
See,
for HRM. Yes.
methodology is not limited to any domain. Even geography people today are using machine learning algorithm. When we are using movie recommendation, that recommender system is also that reinforcement learning they are using. So it is not specific to particular domain. If we are familiar to a domain, and if the problem that we found out, that problem can address, that problem can be solved using that methodology, we can implement. So methodology, if it is a human resource management also, so there will be huge data count of people, so any machine learning algorithm can be used there. There can be soft computing algorithms are also there, can be used. There are many statistics are there, many distributions are there, can be used. These are the methodologies are not limited to particular problem.
Yes, yes. So in HRM, their hypothesis testing are also used there. Hypothesis,
Hypothesis testing, of
statistical
course,
hypothesis also.
that I took only one word, that is statistics are there, that probabilities, probabilistic and statistics part is there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. The last question is for abstract, how many words are necessary?
See, 200 minimum word. If I be very precise, so I'll suggest 200 word. If some that is if IEEE just consider the IEEE sensor or IEEE transaction. If they are instructing to be precise within 150 word, then I can be lesser with 150 word. If someone is instructing to be 300, then I have to be with 300. But optimized is 200 to 250, according to my concept, according to my points of view, of course.
Yeah. So that is this is the last question of this session. So
Yeah.
it's a very informative, all the answers, and I think all the audiences are now, it's all the questions are cleared for you.
Thank you so
Now, over to Aishwarya ma'am.
much.
Aishwarya
Yes,
ma'am.
One thing I'd like to mention still,
Yeah,
if anyone is having any problem and want to ask me, feel free to connect over phone or email ID.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you all. Thank you
yeah.
for bothering me that long period of time.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable insights. And I'm quite sure that the detailed descriptions, especially you have structured in that such a manner that what to do and what not to do. Because many a times, being a beginner to be a researcher or maybe an expert, they do certain mistakes. Your lecture has given an clear, concise idea, and you have portrayed in such a way that like what to do and what not to do. That is a key thing to take away in this session, I will say. And very wonderfully, you have described stages by stages. And thank you so much, ma'am, first of all, for your
Most welcome.
valuable time and because and also to the audience and the participants because week long 2 week long FDP is really a tedious like people usually do 9 to 5 jobs and traveling back again, taking care of the research and the studying and all those things. I really appreciate to the audience as well for
Yeah,
their
of course.
motivation, and they have truly given a lot of supports, lot of thumbs up for this session, and really, 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 it is a valuable session for them also.
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you, ma'am. And
Thank you.
as we know,
May I
it,
quickly?
yeah, yeah, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you so much. So I'm quitting, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, ma'am. So, dear participants, as you all aware of that it's a long 2 weeks program, and yeah, so long 2 weeks program, and as we know that we are already in the end of this today's session, and very importantly is that certificate how you can get. So in your WhatsApp group, the group that we have created, so there we have shared the mm, question. So please do fill up and complete the exam before 23rd of December 2024. You can take a complete 2020 after 2023, 23rd of December. This exam is going to be off. You can't submit the response, right? So you have couple of days in your hand, and it's just on 30 questions, each of carrying 1 mark. So complete the task, and I would like to thank everyone for being with us, and also I would like to thank our expert so who has been delivered in this all these 11 days, giving insights on different topics, structuring about research, methodologies, using AI tools, even giving how to write a research papers. So there are many more things. So thank you all our guest speakers. I would like to take their names. Dr. Vikash Koli, who has been taken in day one. Then Dr. Mohammed Mohiddin, who has been taken in day two. Day three, Dr. Sumit, who has been covered a basics of latex, and Dr. Debashish Chakraborty, who has been given how we can use AI ML on different respective field, how you can utilize AI ML technology in your research paper. Engineer Aditya Singh has given you insights about effective communications, how effective communications with the journal, how you can publish your paper, how you can communicate with the journal, how you can find your right journals. And special thanks to Dr. Biswajit Sarkar, who has given a research proposal, how to write a research proposal, how to create a structures, how you can, what are the ways that to get fund and all. So Dr. Surjit Dalal is also given a selection of right journal. Kaushik Kumar has given post publication activity, how you can enrich your citations and other thing. Dr. Arunava sir has given AI tools and the structures. And today's session is about the what do's and don'ts in the research paper. That is also important. I believe that in this complete 11 days of program, you have got a rough idea how to structure your research paper, how to build your career towards a research profile. And I'm quite sure we are there as a family member. You are being connected with InnovaWorld. So stay connected. If you have any further queries, you can just anytime you can contact us. Our team is always there to help you and guide you if you need any help in the research activities. So again, thanks to all our participants, and we are really, really happy that you have connected us, you have believed us that we have, and we believe, and we are really happy to see a very good and positive feedback to get it from you guys. And really, really, we are super happy to get those feedbacks. And in future, we'll be trying to get more certain lectures, and definitely we will not let you down, and definitely we'll be happy to stay connecting with us. So I hope see you soon in physical mode also, and soon we are conducting a conference. So maybe if you're interested, you can submit your paper and build your research career. And thank you so much, and thank you everyone for being with us again and again. I'm telling thank you my entire team, and also thanks to Almighty for showering our blessings and giving us a platform like this, so where we can share the knowledge with the people. And thank you, everyone. And hope you have learned a lot from these sessions. And yes, thanks a lot. And stay connected with Innova World Research Center. So, Jai Hind, signing off.